Hello and welcome to Eat, Sleep, Code, the official Telerik podcast. I'm your host, Ed Charbeneau, and with me is my co-host, John Bristowe. How you doing,
Hi.
John? It's been a little while, man.
Yeah, it has. It's been a nice little break, so now we're back at it.
We took a little summer/winter break, depending on which side of the screen you're looking at, right?
That's right. I should be standing upside down, I guess, to make it more accurate.
Yeah, we had kind of like peak summer here, and things got really busy, so we decided to take a streaming break for a little bit. And we did a couple special shows, but we took our kind of series shows off for a little while and gave us some time to catch up on some things. I personally was working on some .NET stuff that's coming up for the release in November. I know it sounds like a little bit early to be getting busy on something that's happening in November, but it's a pretty big release coming. So I had to take some time to work on some MAUI and Blazor and things that are going to ship later this year. So cool. There are some tight deadlines on getting that content created in the can for that November timeframe. So
yep.
I won't give too much away, but we'll be looking forward to that. How about you, John?
Very busy. Our company has grown quite a bit at Octopus. We've been really busy building out features and supporting new enhancements for customers. So no rest for the wicked.
So let's get to some news, my friend. We've got some news about GitHub Codespaces versus Gitpod. Now, I've heard of GitHub Codespaces, so you'll have to fill me in on Gitpod and what that is.
Essentially, they're kind of the same thing. So basically, people were kind of teased about this sort of support in GitHub. If you go to a repository today and you hit the period key, it will knock you into the Codespaces environment, which is basically similar to Gitpod, a Visual Studio Code online hosted experience for your repository. So Visual Studio Code is built on a web front end called Monaco, I believe. That's the code name for it. And so if you don't want to have to install that experience, or let's say you're on a Google Chromebook and you can't install anything, you can use an environment such as Gitpod or Codespaces from GitHub. And so some people obviously ask the question, what's the difference? And so this article goes through the differences between them. Gitpod is its own thing. It's a separate company, I think, based out of Europe. And Codespaces is hosted in integrate directly within GitHub. So yeah, this is basically an article that details the differences, and to each his own or her own. And basically, if you want, you can utilize this today.
Yeah, definitely have to scan through this if you're going to look at something like this, because you're choosing between the integrated, thing by the creators of GitHub versus a third-party thing. Sometimes those third-party things can have nice features in it that
Yes.
don't exist in the main product, but then that you kind of have this this backdoor of integration that's not possible with the third-party things. So there's quite a bit of pros and cons that you're going to have to weigh out. And it looks like this article does it really well. There was lots of charts or grids in here that kind of line up the two services side by side to compare apples for apples, what each of those integration points is. And it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So if you haven't used it, it's a wonderful feature. You can go to any repository you have, and then just hit the period key, and we'll knock you into that experience if you want to take a look.
Very cool. Very cool. We'll continue with some GitHub news here. It looks like you've got something about Copilot.
Yeah.
Generated insecure code in 40% of circumstances.
Yeah. So for folks who haven't used Copilot yet, it's basically an AI-driven machine learning system that GitHub published. What it does is it integrates within your IDE, specifically Visual Studio Code, and will provide sort of like suggestions, sort of like when you see inside of Microsoft Word, suggestions around what you're typing. It will do so, but in this case, in terms of code. So Copilot is exactly what it sounds like. It's a co-pilot for your coding experience. And what this article talks about, and people's response to this has been amazing. Some people have been like, this is the greatest thing ever. It's wonderful. Some people have been like, it's okay. Copilot, whether you love it or hate it, it can help you. But what this article, the authors here at Insane discovered was that generally speaking, 40% of the time during their experimentation and observation, they were generating insecure code. So something to be concerned about, something to be aware of, that obviously you don't want to just take what is being published through Copilot or being suggested through Copilot as gospel. You want to make sure that you're actually reviewing the code that's being recommended there. And Copilot itself is, it's not perfect, but, it does a reasonably good job of trying to tease out what you're trying to do sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know if you've messed with the new autocomplete in Visual Studio 2022 preview. I don't know if it's based on Copilot or not, but it feels very early. And you know how AI stuff is. At first, it's very clunky, like a toddler or something, and then it kind of grows, sometimes exponentially and gets much better over time. And this is, like I said, preview, so it's still early on, and it is not that great at predicting what you're trying to type in code. And it just like a toddler, it feels like you're programming with a toddler shouting suggestions into your your cursor. And probably about half the time it's just useless, and a lot of people are turning it off, I heard. I don't know if that's the best choice for that, because it's not going to get better if you turn it off. So I've kind of left it on, and just you ignore it just by not hitting tab. But you look at some of the things it's putting in the tab completion, and you're like, why? Where's it?
Yeah.
But I'm sure it'll get better. These things are just going to get a lot better, and it's going to make our lives easier at some point. But right now it's in that kind of sticky phase where it kind of catches you a little bit more than it helps you. So we'll see.
Absolutely.
Speaking of web-based editors, is this part of the thing that we just talked about?
Yeah. So basically, if you're curious about how this all kind of hangs together and works, this is the documentation page for GitHub. Basically, all it does is when you hit that period, it redirects you to their .dev domain. And that's essentially how they host Monaco within the context of your repo.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know about that shortcut key. I'll have to try that one out.
You can show it right now if you want to. Just go to GitHub and pull up a repo and hit the dot, and you'll flip you right over. So this will be a live demo here. Here we go.
Let's try. We'll go to one of my packages here.
Then just
Blazor size.
Yep.
Hit
Now just
period.
hit the period. There you go.
Setting up your web editor. So I've never done this, so it's going to.
That's fine, but it's basically the same thing. This is the install experience. But you'll notice right away it's already Visual Studio Code.
Interactive playground. That'll be interesting to see what it can do with Blazor. Side-by-side editing, sure. Okay, that's
yeah. So you can pull up one of your source files on the left there, and get going. So you'll notice you're still in the browser.
So I can go right in here and start making changes. Interesting.
Yes.
I wonder how I'd run this application from here.
Yeah, obviously not all features are going to be supported. So if you're kicking off something, it would really depend on how you have it configured.
Very interesting.
Yes.
This is still a really nice editing experience. I mean, that's right in the Visual Studio.
Well, here's the thing. It's the exact same experience. People think, oh, this is a net new thing. It's not. It's still Monaco. So Visual Studio Code is using the exact same bits.
Yep. And they have been since day one.
Correct.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. I'll have to try that out in kind of quote production mode sometime. Right. Awesome actions.
Yes.
It looks like we got a GitHub repo here. What are we talking about,
John? So awesome is if you see anything awesome delimited, meaning awesome GitHub, awesome Blazor, awesome whatever. These are lists of resources related to that awesome thing. So these are a list of GitHub actions that people find really useful in their workflow. Just to remind people, GitHub actions are basically kind of like steps or actions that you can take during a GitHub repo workflow. And there are a variety of things you may want to do during that process. Building is one, deploying is another. Octopus Deploy has a number of actions as well. So these and other things you can find on this list.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Another fancy GitHub repo, replace jQuery.
Yeah.
How dare you?
I know. So oftentimes jQuery is seen as kind of like a, a big shotgun pellet worth of too much. There's too much infrastructure in jQuery that it becomes pretty heavyweight. And what you can often do is find a reasonable substitution in vanilla JS. And so what this repo does is it basically provides the equivalent for jQuery sort of things and provide their vanilla JS alternatives. So there are a variety of utility functions that you'll use in jQuery, and maybe you'll just use that one thing, and then you're bringing jQuery, the entire library, along for the ride. You don't have to necessarily do that. And so what this does is it provides you an alternative for those things, those instances.
I kind of get it, but I'm going to remain very skeptical here. So what I'm doing is essentially replacing jQuery methods with some other. I mean, whatever I'm replacing in the jQuery method is just probably the same exact code that's being generated by this. Because the jQuery maintainers, as far as I'm aware, go back through the code base, and if there's a vanilla JS functionality, they then patch that back in and they take out the proprietary routines that were there before.
Oh, sure. But I mean, the thing about this is that you don't have to typically
you don't have to consume the whole library.
Well, if that's the only thing you're using, right? So if there is an alternative and you don't need to bring the entire library, this would offer possibly a way out of that. It's sort of like an escape hatch from jQuery if you want. But the vanilla replacements here are simply that. They are trying to get away from utilizing that to try and break that dependency. Now, there's no guarantee that your dependency on jQuery will completely go away. But it does give you some steps towards that.
I like that they give the source code for the utility function. That's pretty neat. In case you just want to go grab one of these cause sometimes you don't even need a library. Maybe you're doing like, for example, my blog has a very simple listing on it. I don't think it's active right now, but if I go to speaking, this is old. I need to kind of refresh this, but the we haven't been traveling, so the upcoming events is pretty bare.
Sure.
But this is a static site, so there's a little bit of JavaScript in here that takes a list and kind of parses it into two categories: upcoming or past events, then applies a template to it. And originally, I was like, I don't really want to bring in all of jQuery just to do those simple things.
Right.
And ended up writing it a couple lines of JavaScript. But if I would have had something like this, I could have probably shortened the amount of development it took. But I did end up being able to do this in like 2 lines of code or something ridiculous. So functional programming for the win. But this is a nice little, I don't want to say library, but a nice reference to kind of look at for this type of thing. So cool stuff. Confluenza.
Yes.
So is that a play on words, or
it is?
Boy, read the room.
Yes, I know. So Atlassian provides a tool called Confluence, which is basically a wiki that companies can host, and it's used quite extensively. And Confluenza, which is a great name if you ask me, is basically an exploit that's been known in the wild. And so this is a CVE of that exploit, and they're strongly recommending people who are hosting Confluence to patch basically their Confluence instances. I included this because I just love the name Confluence.
Yeah, that's very clever. I like it.
Yes. So, but if you are running Confluence server, not the cloud instance, obviously, but the server instance, if you're self-hosting, make sure to update your instances and patch.
All right. So just wanted to point something out, John. So like I told you, I've been working on some future stuff here with .NET and very closely with the .NET team. Tomorrow, there is a special community stand-up just 20 hours, 40 minutes, and 25 seconds from now, where Daniel Roth and the ASP.NET team are going to talk about Blazor in .NET 6. So I'm going to guesstimate here and assume that, and again, this is just an assumption on my part, that we may see a release here imminent for the next set of preview bits, which will be the release candidate. So keep your eye on that and watch the .NET stand-up tomorrow to find out what will be in those bits when they are released.
Okay.
Very cool. It looks like there are some performance improvements in .NET 6 as well.
Yeah, there's quite a few actually. So Stephen Taub, who's the performance wonk at Microsoft, has basically done a very detailed overview of all the stuff that they've put into .NET 6 relative to performance. There is way too many things to highlight here. But if you wanted to, you could go to this overall. This is sort of an overarching blog post around all the various parts and pieces. So there's improvements to I/O, there's improvements to network, there's improvements to string performance, comparisons, etc. And there have been sub-articles that have been written by those teams that own I/O, for example, to detail specifically what they've done to improve performance in those areas. So if you're interested at all in noting what has been improved, you can go check out this blog post. If you need to convince your manager or your manager's manager why you should move to .NET 6, and you want to use this as part of your evidence of reasoning why you should move to .NET 6, then this is a good article to cite.
I would look at something simple as count .NET Framework 4.8, 14 microseconds down to 5 microseconds. That's quite the reduction. And these things might not sound like they matter very much. I mean, you're talking microseconds, right? Like, ooh, big whoop. But this could affect your Azure bills over time. These computing metrics. You're using CPU cycles and all of that stuff, and it can make your cloud bill actually cheaper to pivot to something that's faster and using less cycles. So there can be a lot of reasons to be happy about performance improvements. Not only your app running faster as a whole, but it could save you some money in the long run. Tongue tied on that. Cool stuff. I saw this article today on Twitter. If you're not following Khalid on Twitter from JetBrains, he has some really great blog posts out there. He tweets very frequently. And this is about a new feature that's coming in .NET 6. So kind of segueing off of our .NET 6 discussions and what you might expect from the next version. It's more of a C# thing, I think, more than a .NET thing. But this... No, it is an ASP.NET thing. I'm sorry. TempData. So we use TempData in MVC to pass some data around in a very, quote, temporary manner, hence the name. But it was kind of clunky. You have this key value pair type of setup here where you've got some generic object in an array, and then you have to cast it off to whatever it is you stashed away in that temp data, and you ended up with a lot of code that looks like this. It's not very pretty. So they added a temp data attribute to the latest version of ASP.NET
for serialization.
And yeah, so now you just say this property is temp data, and it can then serialize the thing back into a string without you having to go look for the key. I'm assuming it just takes the property name, which is name in this example, turns that into the key, and then identified through this temp data attribute. And it also knows the type, so you don't have to write out that code manually. You can just clean that up very nicely. Oh, you can even set the key instead of having it inferred. So there we go. Very cool. Very simple. Something that we probably wish we would have had for years, because MVC's been around a while. A lot of people still using that. Good stuff. If you're not following this Sands of MAUI by Sam Basu, you should be. So Sam has been sharing a weekly kind of newsletter formatted blog post on Maui for the last couple of, I'd say it's been a couple months now, because we're up to issue 24, and he's been doing it about every week. So that kind of gives you an idea of how long he's been at it. But he's been giving lots of updates and great links out to articles and examples and tools that you can find that are targeting the upcoming Maui platform. So, or Maui stack, rather. I think I've been corrected on that more than once. So if you're excited about the Maui, matter of fact, I think it's stack is not the right terminology either. I'm trying to remember the right, the pattern. Sorry, Maui pattern here.
Okay.
We've got a lot of stuff coming. So
nice.
Don't know if you caught this one while we were away, but it looks like we have a very soon window of release for Windows 11. Window of release. I did not mean to do that, but it works. So they kind of alluded to this Windows 11 a couple months ago, and you saw people like Paul Thurrott tweeting about, Windows 11. Then they started doing previews with users. And, people didn't know exactly when this was going to come out, but it looks like it's coming out very soon. So as soon as October 5th, even, you may see some PCs hitting Windows 11. So this kind of gives you a little bit of detail as to what PCs may receive that update. And some people are in the beta of Windows 11 now through the Insiders program. They'll probably, they're already experiencing this, so they'll probably just get rolled over to a full version of it. But it looks like if you're on a newer device that maybe you just bought, something that definitely has the specs for Windows 11, you may be able to get on Windows 11 by the beginning of October.
Neat.
Speaking of new operating systems, it looks like the Android nerds are out there in full force looking through.
Excuse me, enthusiasts.
Enthusiasts. yeah, not to offend anybody, but it looks like people have done some digging and found some timelines for the next release of Android. Sure. It looks like it's coming out in September. And that this is speculation through some documentation and stuff that people have been digging through. So it looks like it is coming soon. I don't personally know what's in there. I have an Android phone, but I'm not a quote enthusiast. I just use the thing. So I don't know what's coming. But I'm sure that they'll have some new things. I mean, just look at a Windows Phone, and you'll probably see some of the features that are coming in the next.
Oh,
No, I'm kidding.
throwing some shade there, Ed.
Speaking of things that borrow from Windows Phone, iPhone 13 is also looking like there's a new design coming.
Okay.
And I'm not an iPhone user, but the kids seem to love them here at the house. I know a lot of people that enjoy them. And there was some notable things that are being removed from the design that makes it a lot more attractive to people like myself. No more notch. They're taking away the notch. Thank God. That is one of the worst things for a user interface or a screen, is to have a piece of it missing. I think that's ridiculous. It's finally gone. Flush rear cameras. That's another huge one that always boggles my mind when you see the other devices. I don't know if we talked about it on this show specifically. Maybe we did. I think it might have been one of the things I picked out last month. Was the Google Pixel has like a big bump on the back. And I said, every time you set that thing down, you're going to scratch that lens. So it looks like they've possibly made the device a little thicker to accommodate for it, but it is now embedded in the screen or in the back of the device. I like that. I think they're headed in the right direction here.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is probably going to be one of my favorite iPhones is the iPhone 5 because it's perfectly sized for your pocket and it's flush, meaning the cameras don't sit out. And I think this kind of matches that similar aesthetic from what I've seen. So if Front Page Tech has, grabbed the scoop and they are indeed foretelling what is going to be the next iPhone, this could be next on my list. I'm still rocking the iPhone 7. It's all dinged up, but that's okay. It still works. So might need to upgrade.
I'd say if these aren't leaked photos, somebody did a darn good job of.
Oh, they're not leaked. So
up.
Front Page Tech does this all the time, and they always have a great graphics design team where they take these leaks and they kind of put them into Adobe products, etc. I'm not a designer, so I don't know what you'd use. Whatever they do, and they put the right aesthetics on it to make it look very Apple-esque.
Gotcha. Yeah, they did a good job mocking them up. This looks pretty legit.
Yes.
These are things that are pain points for me. The Apple ecosystem's another one, so I probably wouldn't still buy one. But the Android phones too, they have a lot of these problems where they have notches, they have bulging cameras.
Sure.
I personally don't like those because they get scratched up, they get busted. We've had some in the household get busted where the cameras poke out the back. Then your case, they're like, oh, it's so thin, but then you have to put a case on to accommodate for the fact that these things are all notched out and the case has to cover them up properly. So yeah, it feels Snabble's got the right idea here. Yeah, you got to replace the whole thing. Like we had one with warranty on it, and then the wife broke the camera. The warranty people are like, yeah, the screen's covered, but not the camera glass. That's not the thing. So we just end up having to buy one, which is probably just cheaper than the insurance anyway. The routine.
I've been recently replacing the parts and pieces. I've been going on Amazon, and because I have two sons, they constantly throw them around like frisbees. I've replaced cameras. I've replaced screens myself. I've replaced what else? Home buttons. It's not too hard, actually. You can get kits. The one that I use is this one right here from iFixit. So iFixit has these wonderful little kits that you can use, and inside they have all the screws that you would need to basically undo all the various proprietary screw types that Apple has, and allows you to swap these things out pretty easily. And they also have guides. So one of the toughest things to figure out is what order you should take apart the Apple devices and the Android devices, etc. And so they detail that in high definition photos and such. So if you've got a broken screen, you can get it replaced at a mall for $100 here in Australia. I don't know what it is in the US, but you can do it yourself. You can buy a replacement screen I think on Amazon for, I don't know, $30, and
Yeah,
swap it out.
unfortunately for us, we haven't had good experience with the replacement screens. They've gone
Okay.
out. The I can't remember what they're called. The digitizer, I guess it is, the part that detects the touching. Those things don't hold up very long on the third party screens, at least from our experience. Maybe other people have had better, but
I've done 3 screens and they've been great.
awesome.
So,
Yeah, very cool. All right. Docker is updating and extending product subscriptions. What do we got, John?
yeah, so Docker is a great tool that basically, I think, really brought containers and images to the masses initially. So Docker is used quite extensively for desktop-oriented imaging and containers. And so they've recently updated it now. Their pricing has changed a little bit. I think generally speaking, if you're part of a large organization and you're using it as a work account purpose, you're going to have to pay for it, which is fine. I mean, I have no problem paying for software, but just as a FYI for folks, if you're going to be using Docker in the context of a work environment, you should expect to pay for it. And that makes sense. I mean, they want to continue to innovate. They need to pay their developers, which means they need to charge for their software. There are alternatives. Just in the spirit of transparency, there are alternatives out there. And certainly you don't need Docker to host your applications. You can utilize pretty much any sort of container based app platform, stack platform, etc. That are out there. But Docker tends to be a very popular one. So just as an FYI for folks.
Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult transition for a company to make, and I wish them the best of luck because, like I said, it's a hard thing to do once something's been free to kind of roll that back and charge for it after the fact. But something like this has a lot of value, and I think people using it will see the value in the product and the way they have these good, better, best models.
As long as it doesn't like if it's not thousands of dollars and it's just hundreds of dollars, like maybe a couple $100 a year, I don't see a problem with it. Meaning for them, I don't, pricing wise, I don't know if it meets their criteria, but I would say that if you are an organization and you have developers using this and using it constantly, you should pay for it, because I think, you need, especially if you want the product to be successful, if you want it to improve and have fixes and features added to the product, you should do the right thing and pay for software. So I have no problem with these prices. These prices seem pretty reasonable to me. Give you an example. I pay for Fiddler, so product from Progress, and I use Fiddler constantly, and I am happy to give them my money. Your company, my money. I'm paying your salary. That's the classic taxpayer credo. Talking to a civil servant. I'm paying your salary. We pay your salary. So it's like me saying to you, I pay for Fiddler. I'm paying your salary. Anyways.
Yeah, FuelSnap's got another take on this. It does incur, some administrative costs and things. Sure. Maybe it has to go through purchasing and that sort of stuff. But so does 90% of the other stuff that you use to get work done. So it's not like it's so far out of the box. I love that people like bulk at some of this kind of thing. They're like, "Oh, Pro, $5 a month," and they like make a stink over it, and then turn around the next breath and buy like a baseball cap for their Angry Bird virtual person in some, some game on their iPhone.
Sure.
Some virtual goods.
Yes. This is a technology that is making you more productive. It's giving you time back, which is something you can't buy. So.
And then finally, I saw this on Twitter today. This was going around. The Microsoft MVP folks were sharing this quite a bit. This is targeted at PC gamers with accessibility needs. Okay. And it looks like Intel is doing some research around gamers with accessibility in regards to like arms and hands. They're looking at improving that interaction, maybe the new controllers, new UX type of things, new input devices, who knows? But they want people that they can use in this study. And they want the folks, with these needs to sign up. And it looks like they're willing to possibly pay for it. And it sounds like something that would be really interesting to do if you fit the criteria. So I can share that in chat before we close the show here. But I think that's pretty cool that they're doing that. And
they should also, as a joke, they should also put in here, we can't guarantee you'll get higher scores or anything like that. If you suck as a PC gamer, you're going to continue to suck as a PC gamer, and I would certainly fall in that category. I need all the help I could get to improve my scores. My son's constantly pwned me on games like Fortnite, etc. So, yeah, I think this is not a cheat code or anything. This is to help folks, obviously, with accessibility.
Yeah. So actually, we both know some. I won't say his name because of the material we're talking about, but we both know somebody that works at Microsoft whose son fits the criteria here and is a professional gamer. That's pretty interesting.
Yep, that's awesome. Yeah, that whole professional gamer thing is just a mystery to me. No, I'm serious. Like it's amazing that kids are dedicated that much to playing. For me, it was shooting hoop or shooting hockey pucks against the garage day in, day out. But I guess this day and age, it's like I sound like such an old man. This day and age, it's all about,
Sound like.
Yeah, I know. Sound like, right.
You can always live stream that, and people can,
I know. That's the part that's crazy to me is like I never thought people would be interested in watching other people play games or code or do whatever or watch people talk about tech like we're doing now.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just one of those things, yeah, just interesting. That's all.
What I think is funny is my kids watch more people play games than they physically play games themselves.
Yes, I think the closest I've come to understanding this, and I know this is an aside, is I have watched a fair number of reaction videos to comedic routines and movies that I enjoy, and I like watching other people's reactions to those things just to see if it matches mine. Selfishly, like I'm so self-involved that I just care about what other people think. It doesn't match my experience, I'm kidding, of course, but yeah, I think that's where I think that appeal comes from. So trying to understand why folks do this, I think that kind of plays to it.
Hey, I'll probably make some people angry here, but they've televised golf for an eternity, and if that can be watched by people, anything can be watched by people.
Yes.
Anything sports related or game related can be watched by people on a television.
You'd be surprised, especially when you get into your 40s and 50s like you and I are, how relaxing watching golf can be on a Saturday when the weather's just perfect and you're on the couch and you got that comfortable spot on the couch and no one else is around. You're just lying there and that soothing voice, he's ready to putt now. He's about to putt for the birdie. And you hear the birds in the background on the TV. Like you're out. Like you're out. It's like a meditative thing. I don't get it, but it has put me to sleep a few times.
Yeah, it's not going on my television. No, thank you. But
awesome.
Yeah, I think that's all we have for the week, John. But we've got more shows coming up again. We're going to start getting back into the normal-ish schedule. We're going to maybe change up some of our shows that are here. We took a break to kind of rethink some of the things that we're doing, and shows aren't going to go away necessarily, but we may change like either the topics or the cadence of some of those, and we're still trying to figure it out. It's still, COVID has thrown things for a loop, and we're still kind of making it up as we go. So it's
got to give the people what they want.
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride. We're trying to figure out how it fits into our roles and how it affects the content that we make. We're planning a very cool dev reach that is going to be coming up next month. So that's going to be part of all of this stuff. So DevReach, you've been a big part of DevReach before, John.
Yes.
We are planning our October 26th through 28th DevReach. And This is going to be speakers, maybe in person in a studio, but it will be live broadcast on Twitch. So you'll get to see all of the awesome folks that we are lining up to do those talks. So that's part of the content we're working on. And then we'll be coming back with some AR, VR stuff, and React Wednesday just keeps on trucking with TJ. There's lots of good content here on the channel is what I'm trying to say. So make sure you hit follow, like, subscribe, whatever gets you the notifications to come check us out. With that said, John, I think we're done, my friend.
All right.
Have a good week, dude. And we will see you all in chat back here on the show all week long. Take care.
See ya.